Right? That's all you wanted. And welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. May 18th, 2022. Let's go over some primary results today. You got to be at a pretty happening party last night because of some primary
Well, it was happening because I was there.
That's what it was.
It was a decent party without me.
Did you go one button shorter? It was that kind of party, or
no?
No, you kept it tight. Buttons were tight.
One button.
I'm just saying, if you look at the screen, I'm just saying you have one button. I just,
well, this
I
is
didn't know what kind of party it was.
This one only has two, and then like I.
And you don't want to go top button. No, you don't want to go top.
I could go top button.
I'm not a fashionista, but I'm assuming you don't want to go top button. I could. You know what though? It's not awful.
It's the shirt. The way the button distance is weird.
I always got made fun of because when I would try stuff on, I'd be like, yeah, it's not bad, which is like not what you're supposed to be going for when you're shopping for clothes. Like not bad. Like not bad is my standard for like clothes. And for other people, like not bad means you don't even look at it.
But for a guy,
maybe.
Like for your demand, it's not bad. Like
yeah, that's not bad. I don't know. I always got
that's
made
an
fun
endorsement.
Of
not bad is an endorsement for some people. You would be one of them.
Wait, I'm sorry. You're saying that an endorsement when I say it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, if
it's
I
a compliment.
Say not bad,
if you say it's not bad, it means it's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's just the terminology.
So,
all right, well, I'll stay buttoned all the way up.
For the whole show. You're going the whole show that way.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
That's understandable. U.S. soccer evens the score. The men's and women's had different agreements as far as pay financially. U.S. soccer came to an agreement with them. I'm going to tell you why. I don't really know if they're evening the score. I think the women might be actually giving up some stuff. Japan's solution is old. I mean, odd. They have a unique.
I like that. That's very
Thank
clever.
you. You like
very
that? There
clever.
you go. We're going to talk about their solution. They have like a housing crisis and what their solution is to it. I might have to move to Japan. Might have to. If they're going to pay me to do it, I might have to move to Japan.
You would do well.
Before we get to all of these things, most important question of every day, Mark, how are you feeling?
What I feel fine. I think my one eye itch today, which is bizarre. Like the whole why would one eye itch and one not? But that's the way it's going. You said something about all I need and whatever. Well, I'll tell you one of the things I do need that I don't know if we're going to get to is I need a live drawing of the NBA lottery. Okay. You will never convince me that it's not
rigged.
I was going to try to go with a more delicate word than rigged, but just do it live. And you tried to explain to me that the mathematics of it is so complex.
It is.
That then make it less complex. It's a freaking lottery. You're deciding which crappy teams get to pick first, second, and third. Then don't make it don't make a NASA guy have to be able to figure it out. Because at the end of the day, they just want randomness. So
sure.
Just pick one out. It's whatever. It's so anyway. There's always been debates with it. You can't draw the Powerball behind closed doors, and they do this great envelope reveal. Well, they just reveal what they already decided behind closed doors. How do you know it's on the up and up? You trust it because you want to trust it because you love the NBA. I like the playoffs, but I'm not going to sit here. If it was up front, they would open it.
Yeah. No, you're team transparency today. That's good.
I just do it live. It's not that hard.
That's good.
Well, the way our system, we have this algorithm. Then get rid of the algorithm and just break it down. Just like, hey, this team gets this many ping pong balls. This team gets this many. This team gets one, and draw it.
It cracks me up like this is a hill that you're going to die. Like out of all the hills, this is the hill.
It annoys me every year.
No, I get it. Real quick, before we dive into some of this primary, because obviously I think you have a neat story for us about last night.
I do.
Before we dive into that, I just checked I keep going to the election returns. Oz and McCormick are even closer now than what they were. So I don't know if they're still counting, if they're still adjusting.
They're counting the write-ins.
Okay, so right now, McCormick actually, because McCormick was up the entire night.
McCormick was up until I woke up this morning and he wasn't.
McCormick right now, 31.26%. Oz, 31.37%. He has closed the gap slightly. So that gap is shrinking. It's now under 1,000 votes.
Wow.
So pretty impressive. It's under 1,000 votes, and total you're looking at almost 200,000, probably more than that. Total votes.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Is there shouldn't there be a rule if it's close enough, we just put him in the middle of the ring and let him fight it out? Which McCormick would obviously win because he's a wrestler, but
maybe they should have like a legislative quiz where like they have to answer questions about the state.
Ooh, there
see
you go.
See who would come out on top.
Or since it's Republicans and they're both banging on the Second Amendment like they love it, even though Dr. Oz has kind of wavered on Dr. Oz has wavered on everything.
Okay.
But let's just take him to the gun range.
You want to go Hamilton style, have a duel.
Not shoot at each other.
Oh, just not at the target.
Target.
I thought you were going like full out Hamilton.
No. That would.
I thought you were going Burr Hamilton 2022 is what I thought you were doing there.
Just shoot up.
We talked about her yesterday. Barnett ended up with a quarter of the vote. She's at 24.5% right now.
As we said, she already won. She didn't win the primary, but she already won. And the question now, as I'm thinking this through, who, because it's essentially a coin flip for however it turns out, nobody knows. Which one gives them a better chance to win in the fall?
I don't know.
I think it's McCormick, don't you?
I think to what's the word I want to use here? I think, especially for people in our region, I think McCormick is the obvious answer. I would be curious if you went around the state and asked that question. I don't know if that would be the answer. I think to us, that's to me, yes. Like to me, McCormick is the answer. But I think if you went around the state, I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily true in like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and Harrisburg.
I guess. And this is the way I look at it. Maybe this is totally wrong. When you look at the way that Trump has rallied the blue-collar redneck vote of the Republican Party, and Trump is the furthest thing from blue-collar redneck. But they have the thing that they both like is Trump tells everyone to go F themselves, and the blue-collar redneck loves that. And that is the crudeness, the crassness. There's nothing delicate about Trump. And that plays to them. Oz has none of that. I don't see any connection between Oz and the blue-collar redneck. And that's where I don't see why. Yeah. I see the connection between Trump and Oz because they're both TV personalities and they were both outsiders of the political machine. But see, so I get that endorsement.
My naive opinion of that, though, would be like going into the next election. If I'm a Democrat in Philadelphia, I'm way more likely to cross lines to vote for Oz than I am to vote for McCormick.
That is a very good point.
So I think it just depends on if you go around the state and you ask people. Like I said, to you and I think it's very obvious what the answer is. I just, throughout the rest of the Pennsylvania is so unique in that way. I think the rest of the state would think very differently than you or I. And
no, but you make a good point. To the base, McCormick seems better to the Republican base. But would Oz be able to steal some of the independents or the centrists of the other side? It's interesting. It's interesting.
Fetterman, landslide. Yeah. Despite what had recently happened, I wasn't that surprised. There were a couple of think pieces this morning about him having the stroke. He had a pacemaker put in. I don't know if you heard that news.
I did not. No.
He had a pacemaker put in. There were a couple of thought pieces. One was on Penn Live and a couple other places. Just kind of the idea of electing somebody when you know they just had a stroke or you know they just had a serious medical condition. So I don't know. I personally, if I were a Democrat and I got to vote in that, I don't think that would have persuaded me from not voting for Fetterman.
I think it happened too close to the election that they didn't have time to reevaluate.
Okay. You mean voters didn't have time?
The voters, the party, everything. Yeah. Like the Democrats, they like Fetterman. They think he was the guy. Mm-hmm. And then like all the way through. And then this happens. And there was no ability. It didn't even give people like enough time for it to sink in, I don't think, from the voters aspect. Yeah. They're like, oh, he had a stroke. Oh, but he's doing fine. Okay. Because they've wanted to vote for this guy all along.
Right.
And all they needed to hear was it. But if it would have happened a month ago, and they'd have been like, well, we haven't seen him in public. Well, we haven't done this, or we haven't done that. Or maybe I should get worried. Should we really vote for this guy? Is he going to win if he has another one?
Right.
So that's what I think happened.
I think there is, which it's weird to say this, but you got to vote yesterday, right?
Mhm.
So I think that
I was number 41.
there you go.
9 a.m.
I think that there is when you can landslide a candidate like that, I think it's hard to go against the grain. I think it's hard to vote for somebody else because then you start to question, are they going to be able to win the next one?
Correct.
And so I think even if you had fears about what just happened to Fetterman, I think just the numbers alone support you that this is our best chance in the next ballot. It has to.
I agree.
Regardless. Shapiro won in a landslide.
Yeah, everybody knew that.
And then Mastriano would be the last thing kind of up here to talk about. June, like I finally dug in more so than typical kind of some of the background stuff because he kept being connected to Barnett in a lot of these kind of opinion pieces.
Okay.
So I was trying to just figure out who he was and everything else. I am shocked he won as well as he did. I told my friends that I thought he would win. I did not expect him to win. I mean, he won by 24%.
Yeah,
I mean, it was I did not think he would landslide it the way that he did.
Has there been an election in your adult life that Lou Barletta did not run in?
No, it's so funny. No, there hasn't been.
Does he have a job or does he just run for office?
Just run for offices. It is funny because I think, like you and I have talked about this in different aspects. Timing's everything. Like timing is just everything. And are you in the right place at the right time? I think there are just people in life that the timing just never seems to be like exact or seems to be like in their favor. And so I don't know. This Mastriano thing is going to be really, really interesting moving forward.
Right.
I cannot think of a more aesthetically, it might not be counter opposites, but I cannot think of a more polarizing. Like those two do not go together. Like Shapiro and Mastriano, if you said make the most opposite person you could possibly make from Shapiro, like I'm pretty sure the Republican Party rolled out Mastriano.
Yeah, you might.
I mean, it's when you read about Doug. When you read about Doug, for some reason I almost called him Dan. When you read about Doug, it is pretty incredible that they were able to find a guy this opposite of him. So we'll see where that goes, how that ends.
So on the local level,
you went all buttoned up. Where did you go last night?
I wasn't dressed like this, but yeah. So I went to Jamie Flick's headquarters, I guess. Okay. Which was at the Bridge Tavern over in South Williamsport. And I'll be totally honest. In this is what I know. I didn't think he could win. I thought we were going to congratulations, you ran a good campaign, you fought the good fight, and you came close.
Right.
I'd heard numbers from there wasn't. I'd heard someone say there was no local polling done.
Okay.
I heard another person say, and these people seem like they're in the know. I heard another person say that Ann Kaufman was 18 points ahead in some early polling. So that this was a huge upset. When you talk to the people involved with Jamie Flick, they're like, we kind of thought all along. Like not all along, but as it got going, because it's been like a year in the process, or whatever. Like we thought he was going to win. Our grassroots effort. They're like, our Facebook page had 2,200 people. Theirs had 300. Like it was just. But Jamie's going to come on with us. We think either tomorrow or Friday.
Okay.
Because he's an incredibly unique story as to how he won. And if you don't know, if you can read up on it or whatever, but we'll have him here with us. I was talking to him before the final votes were coming in. Mm-hmm. They thought they were doing well. They didn't know how well, but they thought it was like they had a chance. And I told him, just for full disclosure, we had discussed trying to have them both on here at the same time. It was advised to us that Ann Kaufman wouldn't, she'll never come on. She has nothing to gain by it. All she has to do is lose. Okay. Because she has all these endorsements. She had Fred Keller. She had Joe Ham. She had all these people. And they're like, so she would only see it as something to lose. Okay. And then I was like, well, we should have them on individually then or whatever. And it just never came to pass. And the election showed up and here we are. So I was talking to Jamie before the votes came in. And I said, we would love to have you, win or lose. Mm-hmm. We would love to have you on to talk about the process, why you did it, what you learned from it, all that stuff.
Right.
for those of us who've seen 1,000 elections but have never been in one,
Right.
and just what you learn from it and all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, I'd love to come on. No matter what happens, I'd love to come on. But then he finished it and said, well, this is why I like the guy. I can't do it tomorrow because tomorrow I have so much grass to mow because of all the last second door to door. And,
Sure.
he couldn't take time out on Sunday, 2 days before the election, to mow grass.
Yeah.
So he's like, all I'm doing tomorrow is catching up on grass mowing. And so then I'll talk to you. So, so we're going to work it out, but it's a neat story. I don't want to give any of it away because we can talk about it while it's here, but I can just, they didn't, like I said, the other side got all the endorsements.
Sure.
We're going to talk to him about why and what that means. He didn't take, when he will talk about the money that he did not take, but he's like these PAC groups and things like that. He's like, we refused everybody's money that we couldn't raise on our own privately.
Yeah.
And so this way, if I did win, I wasn't beholden to anyone.
Yeah.
And he's like, now that he's won, so now how scared is the establishment that this guy won, that he doesn't have to help. He doesn't have to vote to help you.
Right.
He can vote to help society because you didn't help him win. And it's a really neat kind of feel-good story. And he's a very different, in a world that seems extreme right, extreme left.
Yeah.
He's not extreme. He's a normal guy who some issues he's over here, some issues
who mows grass.
Who today is mowing grass.
Right.
So if you need Jamie to mow your grass today, he can't because he's too busy mowing his own.
doing it.
But
right
he's
now,
coming and it's neat.
Nice. Right now he holds 51.67%. So that was a close one as well. Right now they're saying the tally, he had 3,681 votes from Lycoming County and finished with 3,443 votes. So that was neck and neck.
Yes.
That was right there. Neat. So hopefully we'll have Jamie on. That'll be anything else from as far as the primaries?
Well, I do want to say this, and I'm not looking for, a new job or whatever, but I've been to two of these, I don't even know what they call, like the headquarters of local, contested local elections. One was a school board one in Townsville a few years back, and one was this one last night.
Okay.
Showed up not knowing who was going to win, and both times the side I was, the place I went ended up being a winner. Okay. So I think come November, if you want to win and you're in a contested, just have me come to your party, and for a slight fee, I will arrive, and I am the good luck charm. I'm 2-0. I'm 2-0.
You're the human victory cigar.
Kind of.
Yeah, that could work. That could be a side gig. That could work for you. Nora said, who won the race for Senator of Pennsylvania Republican? We were actually just talking about it earlier. As of right now, Oz holds a slight lead over McCormick as they continue to tally in the mail or the write-in votes right now. Again, though, the gap keeps closing. McCormick 31.26%, Oz 31.37%. So even just now in the time we talked, McCormick has gained 0.02%.
It is so close.
Yeah, really
I
close.
can only imagine the and you can relate to this from sports. A 1-point loss hurts way more than a 1-point victory feels good.
Yeah, there are I really believe, I say all the time, there's good makes, there's good misses. I really believe there are good misses in sports. And same thing with wins and losses. There are good losses, there are bad wins. In elections, I would be fascinated. Maybe that's a question for Jamie tomorrow. Is I don't know if there are good losses in elections.
See, I think Barnett had one.
No, that's true. Maybe
she did well enough to make a name for herself, and she is a niche as a black woman in the Republican Party. If you want to interview black Republican women, how many are there that are noteworthy? There's Candace Owens. There's
Sure.
I think she did well, but if you're Oz or you're McCormick, are you coming back again? Are you
it's a good
it
point.
Is? I think the loss would be devastating.
No,
I think.
It's a very fair point. So hopefully we'll have Jamie on tomorrow or Friday. That'd be awesome.
Hopefully.
Let's go to, this is just my little 3-minute, 5-minute segment. You allowed me to explain to you the U.S. soccer conundrum. The U.S. women's soccer team has felt underfunded, underpaid for, I would argue, a
long
decade
time.
plus. It's been a while since. I'm sure they always felt
ever
it.
since Brandy Chastain scored a penalty kick and ripped her shirt off.
So essentially, U.S. Soccer, it's being announced this morning, they are officially going to have equal deals with the men's and women's team, which I'm, all for. Kudos to U.S. Soccer for doing this. The irony to some of this, though, is what the U.S. women's team is giving up to have equal pay. I've said to you before, I don't think this whole thing from the U.S. women's team is like a scam. Like, I don't think they're like bad people trying to like misrepresent U.S. Soccer. However, I do think some of the ways they went about this was not justified. They had a deal. They were offered the same deal as the men years ago, and they turned it down. Some of the stuff that the women's team had that the men's didn't, they had committed annual salaries, meaning that if they didn't win, they got X amount. I actually think it was triple digits. I think it was $100,000 a year that the men's team did not get. And so in the last round, when the men's team did not qualify for World Cup, the men's team did not get an annual salary. Like, they're just like, you have to win to get paid, and you didn't win. Whereas the women's team, even though they do win a ton, they're unbelievably good. If they were to lose out or miss out on the World Cup, they were guaranteed a salary. They were guaranteed maternity leave. They were guaranteed. They had some benefits that the men's team had none of, as far as health and insurances. The men's team did not have that in their deal. And essentially what the men did is they took a more lucrative deal payout anytime they were successful. So if we win, we get X amount, whereas the women's team didn't get as much on their wins. They had all these little base things underneath their deal. They're now giving up a lot of that to have an equal deal with the men that, again, they were offered before. They were offered the same deal as the men years ago. So they are giving up their annual salary. They will no longer receive a base
But they
pay.
don't need one because they're going to win.
They're so good right now, they don't need it. What would be interesting is if for whatever reason the rest of the world caught up, or for whatever reason U.S. women's soccer fell off for like a cycle, right, for like 4 years. That would be fascinating because
I don't think
it's one of those things. Like, listen, if you would have said, here's what I'd say to you though, if you would have said 12 years ago to the men's team, like, hey, do you want this base salary? They probably said like, well, what do we need that for? Like, as long as we qualify for the World Cup, we'll be fine. And then sure enough, 12 years later, like, the men's team doesn't qualify.
But the difference between men's soccer and women's soccer is when you're growing up in the fall, if you are a dominant female athlete who has
it's funny that that's what you think it is.
That you're playing soccer.
Well, see, I think the rest of the world, this is about the rest of, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a jerk. I think our U.S. women's team is incredible. I think they're amazing. I think they're unbelievably talented, and they can do things I could never do.
But get to the but.
But I think a lot of this, like, our dominance, like, the reason we tend to be good is the rest of the world has yet to really catch up in the idea of like women as professional athletes, like women being viewed as like being able to grow up as athletes, and that's what they do, and that's what they're trying to accomplish. So I think there's a clear difference between what the men are going out in the soccer world and competing against versus what the women's are going out and competing with in the world. That's my opinion. I think there's a lot of countries in the world that do not view their women athletes as women athletes. Well, and then when we play them, it shows. And
I get that, but we still have however many 200 million women in America, and these other countries don't.
Agreed.
But the difference between the difference in the men's sports is when you go to all these other places, the best soccer players in the world in their country are playing soccer. Mm-hmm. The best soccer players in America are playing D-back in the NFL, they're playing wide out.
Totally get that.
So that's the difference in America between men's soccer and women's soccer is the best women's soccer players are playing soccer. That's the best men's soccer players are playing NFL.
We'll agree to disagree, because I think it says a lot about countries' cultures around the world and them still adjusting to the idea that women can be athletes as well.
And I don't disagree with that, but that curve ain't coming anytime soon. And the women who voted on this,
You know that
their career is going to be long since over it when these
When that
countries
happens.
treat women equally. When they do,
that's fine. I'm still saying 12 years ago, like U.S. men's soccer on the up and up, like it's only a matter of time. And then then we were sitting here and we didn't qualify.
They've been saying that since AYSO showed up in the 70s.
Okay. So all I'm saying is I think that there's this idea with this equal pay, equal agreement. It sounds great until it's not. That's all I'm saying. So they were offered, listen, and here's the other thing
too. They know what they're doing. They're not that dumb.
But here's the other thing too. There's a reason they turned down the first offer. Like there's a reason that when they were offered the same deal as the men, like 10 years ago, they said no. Because there were other things that they realized, like, this is safer, this is more valuable, these things matter more. And now, like, they've given up, like in this article, they have given up a lot of those benefits. So it's just
they know what they're doing. I would love to see all the details, but I'm sure they know what they're doing. I'm sure. And our women are in the World Cup finals again whenever it comes up again.
I'm sure there are smart people representing them. I think that this whole story has been extremely overblown. This idea of like not receiving equal pay.
Well, you'd have to go through and see it. But yes, there is a lot.
When you get offered the same deal and you say no, that's not receiving equal pay. That is your representatives have decided
if it's just
you
that
want
simple,
a different
then yes.
deal.
Yes.
I'm being serious.
It's like asking one kid, do you want a piece of pizza? And the other kid, do you want a piece of pizza? And one says no. And then you said, but you didn't feed me. Well, I offered you pizza. I gave it to you and you didn't want it. No,
I'm just saying.
If it's that simple, I get it. But there are a few things that I have almost 100% faith in, and it's the women's World Cup soccer team from America is going to be really, really good again.
Okay. No, I listen. I hope so. For them, I hope they continue to be as successful as they are. Because if they are, they're getting paid. They're going to get their payday in the future if they are. Now that they have the same deal as the men.
Yep. There you go.
All right. So there you go. I'll get off my high hill now. You appreciated this story when I read it to you. There is a Japanese city that is going to pay young couples to live near old people. The city hopes to attract younger residents to counteract its aging population in housing complexes.
Okay.
I
had this idea, a philanthropical. So I'll just share. If someone else wants to take it and run with it, go ahead.
Okay.
My grandmother, who lived right up here it was by where the one school was. Was it Los Elementary? You wouldn't know because I don't even know. And
I wouldn't know.
And they tore it down, and now there's like an old folks. It's like I don't even know what to say. It's not a retirement home, but it's like an apartment complex, but you have to be a certain age to get
It's a community.
Yeah, whatever it is. And I think it's also there's an income level because my grandmother was not well-to-do.
Okay.
So anyway, but I would go there and visit. And I used to I said it's a dorm for old people. Uh-huh. You come inside, there's common areas and all these people. And because they were old and they weren't wealthy, there were only so many of them that could drive still.
Sure.
And there were only, like my grandma, there were like a couple other people that had cars. So they would pile people into cars and head to Kmart and head to Walmart and do all this stuff. But that's why I was like, this is old people dorm. Sure. So then I'm watching this and I'm thinking, well, what if they took a place like this and instead of, say there's 20 units in the place, which I don't even know, instead of filling all 20 units with elderly people, and I think they were all single at this point, either widows or whatever. What if we filled 15 of it with elderly and 5 of them with like young single mothers? Because then it would benefit the old people because they would have, but it would also benefit these young single mothers who don't know how to cook, who don't know how to clean, who have these people who have raised kids and grandkids, and they could get that aspect where they might not get it at home, because one of the things that we're missing as a society is we're like, oh, these things should be taught at home. These things should be taught at home. But some kids come from a home where they're not taught or they can't be taught. And I just think there's a benefit to both sides. I think the old people would benefit from having young people around and toddlers around or whatever. But I also think that the young mothers would benefit and the toddlers would benefit, because to many of these toddlers who have a 19-year-old mom or an unemployed or whatever, the old people would provide stability. So I've always thought that was I thought that would work. I don't have the exact plan.
No, I know what you mean. So I'll be negative Nancy for a second.
There are holes in it.
I'll be devil's advocate for a second, because I'm not even going to pick the whole, like, you didn't really give specifics. Like, it's like, it's a half-baked idea.
Yes.
So I'm not going to like nitpick the half-baked idea. Here is like the overall arching theme that I couldn't get past. I think one of the most like underrated things about, like, people always talk about with America, it's like freedom and free. The word is independence. Like, people in America value being independent more than any other country. Because if you like other countries, like generations share a home, like you don't, like you live on the same property as your in-laws and all this. Like, in America, it is like, that is my lawn, that is my car, and I don't have to take public transport. Like, there's very much an independence to America that I don't know if in concept the idea is ingenious. Like, there should be more communal living areas that support one aspect of society with another aspect of society, right? But like, to me, I think American independence won't allow a market for that.
And you might be right. And I just had this conversation the other day. You're right as far as intergenerations living together. And I, again, after my divorce, I live with my mother again. So we have 3 generations in the same house 50% of the time when my kids are with me.
Right.
And we just talked about this, how, because I think there is an affluence level to it too, of everywhere else in the world that they couldn't afford it. So all these families would live together multi-generationally, but they're also, like, I know there's a value to my mother who's lives by herself at 78 years old, that I'm there all the time. Her grandkids are there half the time. And it has improved their world. So I don't have my own lawn and my own this and my own that.
Right.
But I can't believe that I know my mom's life is better. I can't believe my kids' lives aren't better because they're around their grandmother.
Sure.
And so there are pros and cons to everyone has their own box.
Yeah.
And you live in your own box.
I think your idea has way more pros than cons. I think your issue isn't pros cons. Your issue is just like the marketability. Like, in order for a concept like that to work, what is your market?
Well, it would have to be governmentally
run. And that's where you would again, I think there's a reason other societies do it, because it makes a ton of sense. Like, there's so many pros to it and aspects to it that make life easier for people. It's just the market in which, I don't know, because even like, I don't even think it's a socioeconomic thing in America. Like, Americans seek for their independence.
I think there's a lot of socioeconomic.
Really? Because like, even like, okay, let me put it to you this way. If you go on the subway on New York, like, no one's trying to talk to each other on the subway in New York. So like, you may not be independent in the sense that you have your own recreational vehicle, like your own way to get around the city. But even when you get on the subway, like, earbuds in, like, book, like, no one's actually trying to like, and that is that American independence. Like,
it's because the person that talks to you is annoying. Like, when you get on a plane, and you're scared to death, and I'm just, whatever.
Yeah.
All I'm hoping is, please tell me the person next to me doesn't want to talk for the whole thing.
It's very American-esque. Is that idea of like your bubble, your space, your things, like, I don't know. I think it's a hard sell in America.
I'm just not sure it's always, it's not always beneficial. The question is, like, I know down the street from me, is like, she's a widower. Here's a kid that lives in another. She's gotta be late 80s. And she's lived by herself. Her husband has now passed away 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's a level of like, there has to be a level of loneliness where they're just by themselves. Now, as we get older and older, like, these generations are so interconnected through social media and through texting and through phones and through all that stuff, that maybe the loneliness and maybe She got to the point that she enjoys it. That she's like, I've had enough hustle and bustle, because she had to take care of her husband for a long time. He was sick, and now maybe it's just peaceful. I don't know.
Right.
But I know with old people that there's a sense of loneliness when they are in their house all day, every day by themselves. They don't see, especially in winters and things like that. So anyway.
No, it'd be interesting.
So it is interesting that they came up with that. I think the young people can help the old people by just being around them, and the old people can help the young people by sharing life knowledge.
Yeah. They're going to get, just put in the context, starting next month, Greater Tokyo's Chiba City, they're going to subsidize up to 300,000 yen. So that's about $2,319 for newlyweds who will settle in the buildings and live next to the elderly.
There you go. I think there are pros and cons. I think there are a lot more pros.
You must be under 39 to apply.
Okay.
It's interesting. All right.
Incidentally, not that you care, but in real estate, that is one of the few, I don't want to say discriminatory, but you are legally allowed to, because you're not allowed to do anything based on race, sex, religion. There's all these protected
the age
classes.
Of my neighbors.
No, but you can make a housing community that's 55 and older, and you can legally do that.
Can you do 55 and under?
That I don't know. Now that you mention it, you probably can't, because you probably can't make someone sell.
It's weird that only goes one way.
Well, it's just to protect. It's for safety and for like.
Yeah.
But that is one of the few places, I don't want to say it's age discriminant, but you're allowed. But it's, I don't know. No one's ever asked that. Like in our classes and stuff, I've never heard anyone say, can you make I doubt you could, but you can make one 55 and older, 65 and older, things like that.
So you just helped me buy a house. My neighborhood is towards the older side, older side.
And they're mean to you. They're trying to run you out.
I love it. It's absolutely great.
Well, they're especially retired old people that have I don't say lost the hustle and bustle, but they're out of the rat race.
Sure.
That they're just like, life can be so easygoing now.
Sure.
They're not in a rush. They're not, hey, what's up? And it's yes, you can tell. Having retired neighbors is not a bad thing in any way.
No, and the other funny part of it too is like I haven't had like full-fledged conversations with a lot of them. A few I have, but not a lot of them. I brought in the early spring, so I had like brought a couple of flower baskets that my parents got me, and had like a bench to put outside. Like we've really been kind of like sprucing up the outside, but kind of like going a little above the average with stuff. And you can see like their eyes light up at the idea that like we don't have like a trampoline in our front yard, or like we don't have kids, but you can see they're just like, oh, they put flower out, like, oh, they did, like, it is like I don't want to say they were nervous about someone like in their 30s moving in, but
they are. They absolutely were nervous.
They were probably nervous about someone in their 30s moving in. So it is amazing how those little details, I can almost tell like it has put them at ease. So the point being, if you're a younger person moving into an older community, go buy a hanging flower basket for $25, hang it by the door, and everything will be alleviated.
You will win them over. That's all it takes.
Everything will be alleviated.
And here's the other thing, and this is, I say this not totally tongue in cheek. If you like go away for a week, they'll come over and water for you.
Probably.
They'll be like, oh, I haven't seen them. Oh, they're flowered. We haven't got any rain. I wonder, they'll come over, water it, and go home. Won't even tell you.
You want to talk about being naive? One of my flower baskets, and you have to go, sorry. One of my flower baskets wasn't looking too great the other night. And I'm like looking at it, and I say to my girlfriend, I'm like, what's going on with this flower basket? She's like, well, did you water it today? And I was like, no, we just had like a monsoon like a day ago. She's like, Jeff, they need water every day.
Because it does get hot.
Okay, see, I didn't. So I'm thinking to myself, I was like, we literally just had a monsoon. So I'm like 48 hours. I didn't water it at all. So I did not know that it was like an everyday thing. Oh, no, it's fine now.
Well, I'll tell you that you'll get a kick out of this. Because when I used to live with my brother, when he was playing, and life in his world happened like week on, week on. Like they'd be homestand for a week. They're on the road for 10 days. So 9 days into the road trip, on the 10-day road trip, the house would be a mess.
Yeah.
And then I would spend the last day cleaning it up and getting ready for him to get home, and make sure the pizza boxes are thrown out, all that stuff.
Sure.
So that's just kind of the way I operate. And so whenever like my mom would go away and be like, you need to water this flower, you need to water this flower,
Right.
it wouldn't get done till the last day before she got home.
Right.
And then the survival rate was not as good as she would have liked. And she'd be like, I can tell you didn't water the flowers. I'm like, sure I did. She's like, when? I'd be like, well, yesterday.
Right.
She's like, well, you can't let it go for 6 days. It'll die. And I was like,
Right.
I can tell because it's now dead. So yes, it is. My kids are much more, one of my kids, I should say. I don't want to give them all credit. My oldest daughter is very good at consistently watering Graham's plants when she's not around, because I just put it off to the end, and by then they're dead.
I also found out the hard way, orchids. Have you ever had orchids? So we got an orchid.
Maybe.
There you go. So
I can't tell you what an orchid looks like.
I knew none of this until like a month ago. I knew nothing about flowers. So apparently orchids, you don't water them. You're supposed to put like an ice cube in. I don't know if it's about how cold it is or it melts slower, or like, I don't know. But apparently
I would guess the melt's slower.
Okay. So you're supposed to put an ice cube in it. Didn't know that. So I just like watered it.
So you drowned the orchid?
The one is not in great shape because I was unaware of these circumstances when you're watering orchids, but so I'm getting better. All right. Anything else?
The beauty of flowers, unlike, children or pets or whatever, you can kill off as many flowers you want and they'll keep selling them to you. Pets, I'm not sure it works that way. Kids, it definitely doesn't work that way.
Who are you buying kids from?
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. But you can kill off all the plants. You show back up the same florist and be like, I killed the last one. They'll give you more.
They'll just let you have them.
As long as your card swipes, they'll give you as many as you want.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
Hockey tonight, Edmonton, Calgary, Canada.
I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. We will see you tomorrow.